Hello and welcome to our tutorial. So in this we're just going to set up an FPS game. We're not going to get everything done here, but we'll probably between this and might take us two more videos to get everything in place. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to organize our project. So I'm going to make a couple of folders. So the first one I'm going to make is called scripts, and the second one I'm going to make is called scenes. And that should not be a subfolder, so we'll just drag that there, and then we'll make another one. We'll call that one FBX, because we're going to bring in some FBX files that we've made exported out of Blender. We will need some audio, and we are going to need some materials, and we'll probably inside that have a textures folder. So let's leave that. We will need more folders for animation, etc. So I'm going to take my scene here. This is my default scene, and I'm going to save as, and I'm going into my scenes folder, and I'm going to call this video intro. There we go. So now the scene is called video intro, and it is saved in here. And the first thing we want to do is we want to import a piece of video and have that play back as our cutscene to the start of our game. So to do that over here, I'm just going to right click and I'm going to create an empty, and this video, or this empty here, I'm going to call it video holder, because that's all it is. And then I'm going to select my materials folder here, and I'm going to create a subfolder called textures, and inside that I'm going to import my video texture. Now where is that? It's on my desktop, and I have lots of stuff on my desktop, but I have this video file here. So in it pops, so I can press play here. So this is the character we were kind of playing around with in class. This is the idle cycle, it's only a few seconds long, of our troll. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's okay. Now I'm going to just leave that in its kind of default state, and I'm going to drag and drop this onto the empty. And when I do that and I go back to the empty, you can see it's added a video player component. So I didn't do that. It was once I dragged the video file onto it, it was made, and then it's placed the video clip in here. Now it says render mode, so when I press play here, I can't see my video. Now I could make a plane and put the video on the plane, etc., but Unity has built into it a way of doing this. So I can say camera near or camera far in terms of rendering. So I would use camera far if I wanted the video to play. If I had an animated sky or some sort of background I wanted to move, I could have a video play in the background, and it will play behind every object in your scene. Or camera near will play in front of every object in the scene, so it's effectively right in front of the camera. And then there's other options here, so material override and render texture. We'll maybe look at them again. So camera near is the one that we want, and it says which camera, and we're going to use our main camera. Now when I press play, our troll is here, and it plays back full screen. Now just to point out to you, in terms of full screen, I have selected here in my preview, normally it sits on free aspect, so it'll look like that. So you should be on either 16:9 or I have this one here, HD 1920 by 1080. Now how did I get that in there? Well, to add in, you can just hit plus, and you can add in a new resolution if you wanted. And we'll look at sort of the player settings later on, but we'll be exporting a HD game. Okay. So that's the video in. So all we did was added an empty, and then dragged our video onto it to get the video player. I'm going to adjust just in case, I'm going to press loop. We shouldn't need it to loop. And I'm going to go to the main camera here, and I'm going to say be a solid color, and I want that solid color to be black. And that's just in case when it's loading, it gives us a single frame from what the camera can see before it plays the video, depending on the speed of the computer or the graphics card it's playing on. Now it shouldn't do that, but in my experience it can do that. So if it's bright blue, it'll be very noticeable. If it's a black frame followed by a video that's very, very dark, then it'll be less noticeable. So if we press play here, that's not quite so bad than if it were blue. Okay, so we'll leave that for now. What we want is we want to have a quick look at this piece of video. So here it is here. So I'm going to double click on it, and it has appeared in my other window. So let me drag this across. So here it is. And the reason I do that is because I want to look at how long it is. So I'm going to press play again. So it's 8 seconds long in total. Okay. So here we are. So I'm going to create a new script, and I'm going to call this vid control, and then I'm going to double click on this and open it. So this is going to load up Visual Studio, and as soon as Visual Studio is open, we will load in a script into Visual Studio. And the script that we want is very simple. We just want it to wait 8 seconds and then go to the next scene to like load our level. Or we'll probably end up loading our menu. So let's do that. So as soon as Visual Studio is opened, we can start setting that up. So my really fast machine, any second now. There we go. So this is our script, and the script we want to write for this is pretty straightforward. So I was going to delete this line here because we don't need that, and we don't need that. So what are we going to say? So we're going to say void start. So we're going to say start coroutine, and the coroutine that we want to start is we're going to call it I don't know, vid play. Let's call it that. So we're going to make a coroutine called vid play. Now what is vid play, or why do we do that? Well, we don't need an update. We don't need void update. What we need now is I enumerator, that one there, and then vid play. I have to spell this correctly. There we go. Oh, I have one bracket too many. Okay, so so why do we need that, or why is that there? And the reason that we have that is, so when we start, when we run the script, it's going to play this here. We can't have it in start because that's just how the script works. And we're basically going to say wait for 8 seconds and then load the next level. So, and that's all we need to put in. So we're going to say yield return new, and then there we go, wait for seconds, and then we've established that it's 8 seconds that we need to wait for, and then we need to tell it what to do. So what's it going to do after 8 seconds? So basically this is saying pause for 8 seconds and then do something. So up here I'm going to add in access to a library. So I'm going to say using, so this is going to be Unity Engine dot scene management. Okay, so we want to access the scene management functionality, and then down here we want to say so scene manager dot load scene, and then we need to give it what scene we want to load, and we need to type it out, spell out the name. So we'll call this main menu, and and I just need to remember how I've spelt that. So two capital M's. Now the one thing that we don't have in our game is a scene called main menu, which is why that's all red there. So we need to go fix that. So let's just talk our way through this. So we've added in a new library because we want to use scene management. So we want to be able to change scenes, and that isn't the functionality to do that isn't in the generic Unity engine. So we've said when the script is loaded, run this function here, and this function basically says wait for 8 seconds and then load the main menu. So let's save that, and then we will jump back into Unity, and if I have a problem, which I do, it'll tell me where my problem is. So it's saying line 20, which is here, it has a problem with that. So what problem do we have there? As I try and okay, so this bracket is the wrong way around. So that should look that way. And now, so open, close, open, close, open, close. So there we go. And now when I go back to Unity, I should not, yeah, so my error has disappeared, which is fantastic. Now in order to get that to work, I need to make a new scene. So I'm going to go File, Save, so save this existing scene, and then go File, New Scene. And then this new scene, I'm going to go File, Save As, and in Scenes, I'm going to call it, and spell it the same way, Main Menu. Save. Now I'm not going to put anything in here, I'm just going to leave it blank. I'm going to open up my scenes here, and I'm going to load in my video intro, and I'm going to press play. Now if I press play now, it won't swap scenes because I haven't dropped the video in. Now where am I going to put this? Well, I'm going to put it onto the empty. That's controlling the video. So now this has the script and it has the video player. It didn't really matter where I put that script because it's just saying wait 8 seconds and load, but it makes sense for me to put it there. So I press play. My video should play for 8 seconds. Now maybe I should have a title here, but this is what we've got for what we're doing today. And then it's giving me an error, and it's an interesting error. It's saying I can't do this because you haven't put these scenes into the build settings. Okay, so let's do that. So that's so in here, scenes in build. So these are, if the scene isn't in here, it's not in your game. So I can add the open scenes as my video intro, but I also have to add my main menu. So I've just dragged and dropped that over here. Now the order here is not important bar one, so what's on top. So if you were to build your game, whatever scene is listed here at the very top will be the first scene in your game, will be the first thing that the player encounters of your game. So let's try that again. So we'll press play, and then we get our video, and it should play all 8 seconds, and then it should change scene to the empty scene, and then we're in our main menu. Very good. So now let's go into our main menu. Yep, we'll save that. So in our main menu, I'm going to go to my main camera, and I'm going to make it a solid color and make it black. And then in here, I'm going to put in a UI. I'm going to make a button. So I'm going to go UI button. And there's my button there. It's quite small. So I've got a canvas. So I'm going to call this menu, we'll call this main menu. For it is the main menu without a J. Okay, and then this is going to be, we'll call this level 1 play. Okay. So if we double click on the canvas, you can see it's enormous. And then I can select the button here and I can move it about inside the canvas. And it's a bit small, so it's got a width of 160. So we'll make maybe kind of double that. We'll make that 300, and we'll make it say 60. So a nice big button. And then if I open this up, this is the text that's on that button. So we'll say play game just for now, so we'll keep it nice and simple. So we'll say play game, and then we'll increase the font size. So play game. Now the button is a button. Now this is the text component, but this here is a button, and it has a whole bunch of functionality kind of built into it already, which is pretty cool. And one of the things that it has built into it is it will change color when we put our mouse over it. So if I press play here, it has, oh well, it's not showing it to me there, so let's go in and play with that. So it says normal color white, highlighted color, so let's make the highlighted color kind of a bluey color, and then we'll press play, and I put my mouse over it, you can see it changes color. So it's got a whole bunch of kind of functionality built into it that's quite intuitive. Like, so when it's pressed, it'll be a certain color, etc. So we can do that. And it also has this thing here. It says unclick, do something. Okay, so let's make a new scene. Let's save this one, and then let's make level 1. So we're going to go new scene, and we're going to save this scene, and we're going to go to scenes here, and we're going to call this level 1. Maybe we'll give it a capital L for level 1. So this is going to be my my main level where I have all my FBX files, etc. So I'm going to go back to my main menu here, and I'm going to select my button. There we go. And then I'm going to add in a plus here. So unclick, do something. Now what do I want to do? Well, I'd like to, when I click the button, I'd like to go to level 1. So let's do that. Let's make a script that brings us to level 1. So I'm going to go create C# script, and I'm going to call this play level 1. And I'm going to double click on this, and it should open for me in Visual Studio. That's what I was going to say. I'm going to delete everything, or almost everything. So we're going to, as you will get used to doing this, we're going to copy and paste this. I'm going to go Control C and go back to my script here, and I'm going to add in this here, the scene management. And then in here I'm going to say public void, and I'm going to make up a function. I'm going to make up a name. We're going to call this play level 1. Okay, and play level 1 has no meaning. It's just something I have made up. As long as it's all one word, etc. So public void play level 1. And oh, I can't. It's giving me an error because that's what I call the script. So I can't. So let's call it play level. And now it won't give me a red line because the name of the script and something inside it can't have exactly the same name. So play level. And what did we do in here? We said scene manager dot load scene, and then we put in the name of the scene. So I'm going to go Control C on that one, and then over here Control V. But in here we're going to put in level 1. And that's it. So how do we get this to run? Well, let's go do that. So I'm going to save this script and jump back into Unity. So on this button here, I'm going to drop in, oh, it's giving me an error. Scene main menu couldn't be loaded because it's not been added to the build. Oh yeah, we'd done that. We rid ourselves of that problem. So I'm going to drag this and put it onto the button. Now I could have put it on any object, but it makes sense to put it on the button because it's the script that controls pressing the button. Now down here it's saying, unclick, do something, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to run that script, and in particular that function in that script. So I'm going to drag my object and put it in here, and then it says, well, what function do you want? And all of the functions that are on this, so I could have 10 scripts on this button, and this will give me like a drag down or drop down menu of everything that's on that button. So down here you can see it's got my script on it, which is called play level 1, It's got a whole bunch of generic stuff, but it's got this one here called play level. So now when on click, it's going to run that function, which will basically change our scene. So let's see if we can do that. So I'm going to press play, and now the game is playing. I can put my mouse over and it'll change color, and then when I left click, it says it couldn't load because we haven't put it into the build settings, which is the same problem we had before. So let's go fix that. So level 1 is not in here, so it can't access it. It can't, only levels that are listed here can be used. So let's press play again, mouse over, and I'm going to click it now, left click, and now we're playing level 1. So if we go back to our video intro, and we'll just save what we have here. So I press play, so the game, the player launches the game. They get their video intro, which will last 8 seconds. It'll bring them to the main menu. When we're at the main menu, we'll have more options than just this one, and we'll obviously make the background look more interesting and put in images, etc. But when they click on this button, it brings them to the level. So we've got sort of all of the basics there. So now I'm going to load level 1 in here into the editor. I'm going to go to my FBX file, and I'm going to import assets. And what am I going to import? I'm going to import stuff from this folder here. So I'm going to import pillars. I'm going to import pillar collision. So this is kind of like a collision box that'll go around them. I'm going to import my non-player character, which is the troll. I'm going to import an FPS rig, which is like a hand and I think a gun that goes in front of the camera. I'm going to import my floor collision, which is just a plane. I'm going to import my actual floor, and then I'm going to import my cave walls. And I don't see another roof, so I don't know if I need to separate that out. We'll worry about that in a minute. So I'm going to set this up now. So my camera is at position 0, 1, minus 10, which is kind of the default position. So I'm going to take my cave walls here and drag them in, and I'm going to position them at 0, 0, 0. And we're just going to I'm going to double click on them and have a look at what we can see. So this does not look too bad. So I've got walls, and no, we're not going to worry about textures and stuff just yet, but that looks right. Now it might look weird here. I'm actually looking through this side and seeing the inside of this object, and that's a good thing, because otherwise it'll be rendering the wrong side of the face. So this should be visible from the inside, which it is. Okay, so that's good. So that's my cave walls. I'll bring in my floor. Again, I need to zero that out, so 0, 0, 0. And when I made this in Blender, I made sure that the origin of all of these objects was the same. So when I put them all in, if I have them all at the same point, they should all fit neatly on top of each other. I'm going to bring in my pillar collision, and then my pillars. Now, and we'll just set this up a little bit before we get too drastic. So I'm going to go to my materials folder here, and I'm going to go to my textures, and then I'm going to import all my textures here. I don't know if it'll import them all in one go, will it? Yeah, it should do. There we go. So these are all the different textures. So if I go to my FBX file here to set this up, so I've got a cave walls, for example. Under materials, it says it's got a cave wall material. So I think that's this cliff one here. Oh no, sorry. This is the texture and not the material. So let's create a material. So we'll create a material and we'll call this cliff wall. And then we will create another material, and that material is going to be called stone. We will create another material, We'll call this troll skin. And then we'll create one more for now, and we'll call this eye. Okay, so cliff wall. So this is the cliff wall here, so we're going to take the cliff and put it in there, and we'll just take the normal map and put it in there and not worry about the rest, and we'll fix that. Then we'll take our eye, and that just has that. Then we'll take our stone, and that's going to have the stone wall base color and normal map for bumps, and we'll fix that. And then we'll take the troll skin, which is this one here, and leave that as it is. So what we're actually interested in are these materials. So when I click on cave walls, it's saying you need a material. So there's my cliff wall material. And my floor, yeah, I'm going to apply that. So you can see that's been applied. My floor should have a stone material. So let's put that in there and apply it. And my floor collision doesn't need any material. My non-player character should have its eye, and it should have the troll skin. We haven't brought that in yet, but we'll do that in a bit. Now I've got my pillars, and they should just have the stone. Okay, now let's go and work on this a little bit to get the scene ready, like physically ready. So the pillar collision should have collision. So let's do that. Let's give it some physics. So we're going to go add component physics mesh collider. So now you can bump into them, but we're going to turn off the renderer because we don't want to see those polygons or those those rectangular shapes. We want to see what's behind them. So these pillars, we can see them, but they have no collision because they're too complicated to have collision. They've got quite a few verts in them. The floor collision is the same, so we're going to go add physics mesh collider, but we don't want to see that, so we'll turn it off. And then the floor underneath, again, we can see it, but it has no collision. And then finally the cave walls, it has both, so it's going to have physics mesh collider, and we're going to see that as well. Now we could probably not do it that way and put a simplified collision mesh on the walls, but life is short. So let's take the main camera. Now we're not going to use this camera, but let's just see what we can see. So I'm going to move the camera and I'm going to turn it so it's approximately looking down that way. We're going to move it back, and then we're going to put it inside. So that's now currently what the camera can see and approximately what the player will see. Okay, so now at the moment we've only got one light. We've got a directional light, so I'm going to change this from being a directional light to being a point light, and I'm going to take the point light and I'm going to put it inside my cave here, and then I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to move that towards the camera, and I'm going to go back to the first one and duplicate that again and move that towards the other end. I'm going to go back to my main camera because it's going to define the world, and I'm going to say it's a solid color and it's black. So what we see outside of this is just black. And then as the camera moves forward, you can see what the player will see in the game. Okay, so now let's see if we can actually move. So I want to drop in some sort of moving camera, but in order to do that I need what are called the standard assets, because inside that Unity has sort of like a prefab or a pre-made first-person camera setup. So to do that, I need to download or import that. So some of you, when you right-click here, you'll be able to go import package, and it'll be listed here. It'll be called the standard assets. But we don't have that. So what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to go to my asset store, and hopefully that'll load up here. Maybe, maybe not. And in the asset store, I'm going to search for the stored standard. You can see I've done this before, and that's these ones here. This little picture here is the standard assets for Unity. So I'm going to click on that. Now, if you've never used it before, this button will say download. And from the you'll have to download it first, and then after you've downloaded it, then it'll say import. So you may have one extra step to do than me because I've already downloaded it. And you can see it's big enough. It's 100 meg, 180 meg. So I'm going to hit import, and it's going to give me a dialog box, a pop-up window. And that's going to be all of the standard assets, and I don't need them all, so I'm not going to import everything. And sometimes you get errors between versions. So these, as you can see here, it says standard assets for Unity 2017. This is Unity 2019, so sometimes some of the scripts have been depreciated. So I don't need any sample scenes. That's the first thing. I'm going to turn that off, and it'll unclick a whole bunch of stuff underneath it here. Maybe, hopefully. There we go. So I don't need any of that. I mean, I could import it, but I'm not going to use any of it. So it'd just be a waste. I don't need anything to do with 2D because I'm not doing any 2D work in this particular game. So that's discounts all that. I do want the cameras though, and the characters, and cross-platform input just in case we want to port it to Android or something. The editor, I don't need any effects. We can come back and get them, or environments, or fonts for that matter, or particle systems, or physics materials. I don't need anything to bounce or anything, or prototyping. I will leave in utilities because that has camera refocus and it has a few things, but I don't need vehicles. Now sometimes there are scripts in utilities and in editors that give us problems. They've been depreciated or changed over time, but we'll find that out the hard way when we go in. So I'm going to hit import now, and it's going to import all of those different selected objects into my scene. It's going to create a folder here called standard assets, and then I can use those standard assets in the game. So we'll just give it a minute to install that. If you select everything, that you don't, you're not selective in what you import, it can take quite a while because it has all these things that are in this picture here, like spaceships and airplanes and cars and characters, and it's got a whole bunch of stuff to import, so it will bloat your game. So here are my standard assets. Now I'm going to click down here and see in my console. So I've got a couple of things here. It's saying that this water base editor is giving me a problem, so I'm going to delete that. And now I've got more saying this one here is causing a problem, so I'll delete that. So it's giving both of, so I'm just going to delete all of the water here. Actually no, let's just delete the ones it doesn't like. So we'll delete that one and the specularity one, and see if we, so okay, now after it's deleted them, it's still finding more errors, but when you hit clear, so anything that remains after you've hit clear will stop the game from running. It's a compiler error. So with a compiler error, the game won't run. So I should be able to press play now, and they should turn blue, and the game, although nothing's happening, the game is running. So okay, so that wasn't too bad. Sometimes you have to delete quite a bit. What I'm interested in here in standard assets is to go into characters, first person characters, prefabs, and then I'm interested in this, the rigid body FPS controller. So I'm going to drag and drop that into my game, and there it is there. And you can see from the icon it's got a camera already in it. So right now I have two cameras. So I'm going to take this one that we were looking through, and I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to take this FPS controller, I'm going to bring it down and bring it along through my corridor here, and I'm going to turn it around so that it's looking back up. And you'll notice that it's some of the things that we had undone. So if I press play here, for example, and oh, I've gone through the floor. So let's see if we can fix that. That shouldn't have happened. So where's my floor collision? Okay, so it's got a mesh collider. Yeah, that should work. So why am I floating through that? That's fascinating. So let's say I'm going to take my floor here, and I'm just going to add some collision to that just to get myself up and running. Mesh collider. And see if I can land on that floor. And I can. Okay, so there's something wrong with the other one. We'll fix that in a minute. But you can see as I move forward here, I can see the horizon. It's not dark anymore, which is what I wanted to show you. So I have to go back to this camera. So I have to, and then I have to do the same thing. I have to go solid color and black to get rid of any kind of background elements that would otherwise be visible. So you can see now the outside world is just dark. So apart from this floor collision, so I'm just going to actually remove that, and we'll fix that another time. We can see that what we have is quite effective. So this has mesh collider on, so I'm going to press play, and I can move forward. I should be able to walk over my bridge because the walls have collision on them, and therefore this part of the ground as well. And then I can move in to the other side. So this is my small kind of demo level, and we're just going to run this from the top. So we're going to save this scene, and we're going to go to our scenes folder here. We're going to go to our video intro, and we're going to press play, and we're going to get 8 seconds now of our I clicked off it there for a second. So 8 seconds of him playing. Then we get our main menu. I click play game, and here I am in the world. Okay, and so we need to set up now our non-player character. We need to set up a whole bunch of stuff. But for one short session, that's not a bad innings. So we have our cutscene intro, followed by our main menu, followed by level 1, and we can navigate through all 3 of them and get ourselves to this position here. So I'm just going to save this, and then in the next video we'll pick up, bring in the non-player character, bring in some health. We'll put a plane here, so if we fall off the bridge or fall off the world, that when we hit it, the game is over and we go back to the main menu. And we'll put in a little kind of GUI health bar, so if we have a little fight with our troll, that the troll can inflict damage on us, and then we can shoot it. So we'll set all that up in between the next video and the one after, and we'll also cover exporting and basically this all the things that you will need to complete your project. Alright, we'll leave it there for now.